All right, so I've got a white oak slab here and got some scribbles on it. I want to talk about the different parts of wood in this slab and how that might play into picking a good axe handle. What got me thinking about this is, number one, just having a ton of different white oak slabs in my backyard. So I'm seeing them a lot, I'm thinking about them a lot. But also, I saw online, again, somebody talking about that old saying where you want to pick tool handles that are all one color, and you want to pick from the sapwood. I mean, the gold standard for a lumberjack 150 years ago would have been one color. It would have been sapwood, and it would be light. It'd be light in color. And I think that's kind of interesting for a couple reasons. I think that it was true at the time that it was said, but just as soon as kiln drying and sawed versus riven lumber, as soon as that came into play, I think that knowledge, it stopped applying to the way that we as modern people live our lives and do things. But if you want to go live your life like an 1880s lumberjack, that knowledge immediately becomes relevant again. And I want to talk about why. Now, first off, you've got different parts of a tree here. Now, there's no live edge here. The center of the tree would be like over here. This was a very big white oak. So I've just kind of got one section here. I've kind of made up a pith. You know, this is going to be the pith right here. Just imagine that the center of the tree, and I'm going to draw some growth rings there just to make that a little bit easier. Now, the pith is the center of the tree. The pith is hollow. The pith is always junk. The first thing you do when you cut lumber is get rid of the pith. Cut that straight out. And it's not just the pith that you want to get rid of. You want to get rid of however far out those growth rings, the circle growth rings go. Just get rid of all of that. That's all unstable. Now, where the pith ends, the heartwood begins. So let's maybe make the pith right here. Okay. The heartwood, I think about it as being the completed wood. Everything happening here happens so that we can have more heartwood on a tree. The heartwood is the most rot resistant. It is the most bug resistant in oaks. It's where all of the tannins are that bugs hate, that kill microbes, harmful microbes. That's all here. The heartwood. Heartwood has more compressive strength than sapwood. It's very interesting how that works. The railroads did a vast number of studies on the difference between, if there is a difference between sapwood and heartwood. For the most part, they're consistent in that if you want a very durable railroad tie, you would pick it out of heartwood. But ultimately, I think what they concluded is that the scale, you can't just have railroads made out of heartwood ties. We don't have enough oak for that. It's wildly wasteful to do it. And so I don't think that they found at the scale of a railroad really any economical difference between sapwood and heartwood. But if you're talking about just purely on the paper, heartwood is more rot resistant than softwood. But then you get to the sapwood. And one thing I'll say is I drew these lines, but that doesn't mean that's where the sapwood is and where the heartwood is. On this particular board right here, I don't know what's heartwood and what's sapwood exactly. You can't tell. On some trees, you're going to have very, very clear dark heartwood, and on others, you're going to have no difference. It's all just one color. So this is all kind of pedantic to an extent, and I'm just interested in talking about it. So that's why I'm talking about it. This is kind of an academic discussion. Now, after the heartwood, you get to where the old lumberjacks would have said to get your tool handles from, right here, after the heartwood, but before the cambium. You want to be in between the cambium and the end of the pith. This is if you have no microscopes, no scientific equipment, you know, you're just trying to make a good handle. This is your safest. This is your safest place to get it right here. And that's because you are beyond the pith and not yet to these parts of the tree. And I want to talk about why this makes such a poor tool handle in a minute. But now the sapwood does statistically, on the paper, again, on the paper, it does often have a higher modulus of elasticity and a modulus of rupture. Now the thing is, my personal belief, and I have no evidence to back this up, is that once you kiln dry wood, any benefit between sapwood and heartwood becomes irrelevant, mechanically speaking. I think kiln drying is, if you want a very good, very durable tool handle, you don't want to bake it. You know, you don't want to put it at 150 degrees for, you know, however long 2 weeks. It just kind of fries the wood. It just makes it more brittle. But I think if someone has a rived sapwood tool handle, that's going to be the kind of thing that will last years and years and years, if not decades or a lifetime. And there's a couple guys out there that still do custom make, special make axes with riven sapwood tool handles. So this is kind of the gold standard. This would be all one color, and it would be from the sapwood. All right, so after the sapwood, you have the cambium layer. Now the cambium layer is where the new wood grows. This is where the tree actually expands itself. It adds girth. The cambium layer is provided with sugars and nutrients and minerals and all the stuff that it needs to grow from the phloem layer. Now the phloem layer, impossible again to tell you exactly where the cambium starts and the phloem ends. I just kind of put it here just because. The phloem is going to be just in the summer. It's going to be just wet. You know, if you were to strip the bark off a tree in the summer, you'll just have wet, sugary, sticky hands. And rub your hand on the spot. You just, don't do it. But as kids, didn't we all do that? Didn't we all abuse a tree or two as kids? You'd take the bark off, and the underneath in the summer would just be wet and sticky, and your hands would just be covered in it. That's all the sugars and the nutrients that tree needs to grow. So that's the phloem. This is essentially the wettest part of a tree in the summer, with the most stuff that bugs and bacteria likes. Right here. And if you look at a bug infestation of white oak, or any oaks really, the bug holes always stop here. They follow the line, even if it kind of goes like this, even if it kind of vacillates a little bit, the bug infestation stops at some point, usually about right here. They might go a little bit past, but not too much, because the closer you get to the center of the tree, if you're a bug, the further away you're getting from the good stuff out here, and the more bitter and just generally the less nutrients the tree has for a bug or for microbes over here. So after the phloem, which carries the nutrients that the tree needs at the cambium layer to add new wood, after that you've got the bark. We kind of all know what the bark is. It's not really wood. So basically you've got bark, which is a protective outer layer, the phloem, which carries the nutrients a tree needs to grow. You've got the cambium, which is where the tree grows. Finally, the sapwood. What is functionally the sapwood? I couldn't tell you what, it's newer wood. This would be the newer wood. Heartwood is the older wood. And then the pith is the center of the tree. And nutrients also go through the pith because it's hollow. But the pith is mechanically unsound wood. So with that little summary, I guess I've just been thinking about that old saying, sapwood handle, all one color. You know, that's what those old lumberjacks would have said. And, you know, if you're an old lumberjack, I'd get my handles from the same place. It's the easiest way, the easiest method to visually be sure that you're away from the pith and you're away from the cambium and the phloem and the bark. Is it relevant today? Well, I don't know. If you're somebody like me, I'm actually much closer to an old lumberjack than I am a modern handle maker. You can see how air drying summer felled trees impacts the quality of the wood. You know, you look at this line, that's exactly where all of this microorganism growth is. Now, I'll kiln dry this at some point because it's not going to be tool handles. It'll be furniture, but it could be a tool handle. Now, the modern technology that we have with kiln drying, I mean, after a tree is felled, number one, it's going to be felled in the winter, and then after that, it's going to be kiln dried. So none of this growth is going to occur because it's been kiln dried, and it's going to be kiln dried relatively quickly after it's been felled. So this is, you know, you see how modern technology kind of makes old, ancient human wisdom irrelevant, and I don't necessarily know that that's a good thing. That we make all of this irrelevant and we fundamentally change the way that we're living. But you know, this is the way that the lumberjacks would have done it. I do think there's some truth to picking a sapwood handle that's all one color. If you're doing things the way that I do it, you know, if you're buying kiln dried timber from a commercial supplier of some kind, I don't know that any of this really comes into play, but it's interesting to think about. And, you know, for anybody that appreciates the history and the culture of axes and hand tools like I do, I hope it's interesting. So if you got this far, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you for the next one.